All right, I have a quick update. I didn't plan to do this as a separate update. I think I might have mentioned it on the podcast, cryptotalkradio.net. I think I did, but I can't remember. And since I cannot remember in my old age, I figured I would just cover it again because why not? So I have to give you some background because it's important to understand how we got to this point. There was a time, so you're around October, November 2021, right? Somewhere around there. And I'm on Reddit because predominantly I believe in Reddit as one of these sources to be able to learn about this stuff and get involved. And I was in some forum and I can't remember what it was. I want to say it might have even been the SHIB forum, but I was in a forum and there were two people that were giving away NFTs. And one of them, he doesn't do it anymore, but he was a real big Satama person and he built a bunch of Satama, very limited stock NFTs, and he was giving them away to anybody who wanted them. And I took the Satama of the World one, but he has a bunch of other ones. He built ones for a number of holders, ones for burns, all this different, right? So I'm intrigued. So I say, yep, I'll just take them. Why not? It's my first NFT. Sure, I'll take it. So I still have it. Satama of the World only had 25 ever minted, but then this was around, of course, the failed Vegas event in November 13th. And so then the project tanks, and so then the NFT starts to lose value because Saddam is losing value. So I didn't think about it too much. But then there was another one, and his name was at the time something different, but he then rebranded and created a whole new thing. But he was like a freelance guy, and he just started getting into different artwork, and he had these really cool looking NFTs, and he was giving them away in Reddit. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll just take them because why not? And he eventually would rebrand into what's now known as KriptoKrazed. And again, I felt like at the time, if I were going, like, I'm not a big NFT fan. I still struggle with the purpose of them, frankly. But when they are tied to a physical use case, I can kind of support it. I just think the prices are out of whack. These were just really attractive, though. These were very good looking NFTs. And so I was very intrigued seeing what I was seeing, thinking, okay, maybe there is something to this. And so I'm watching his art and it's awesome. And he was sending them for free to people who would ask. And so I had him send me a couple. I still have them, and I thought they were, again, the best artwork going. Well, he built a community on Discord, and with this community, the thought was everybody part of the community, we're trying to build this and make this more popular because I want to get on OpenSea for his collection, and then I want to build. He built out a Patreon. He did all this stuff, and he was doing this, I guess, part time. So he was still working his job, and he was trying to do this, build this off the ground. And he was looking for support and everything sounded good. And I had no concerns because, again, the art's free for even if you were not a subscriber, it was still free. Then when he introduced the Patreon, he introduced more. You got more for the money. And so now it's like, okay, this is kind of cool. I'm going to go ahead and watch it, see what happens. So I'm collecting these cards, right? And here's where it started going south for me. I just recently, there was a bunch of fallout from KriptoKrazed. And I was not following the Discord because I had lost the desire to collect the cards as I had when I first started. And when I saw the fallout, I started to feel a little bit bad because I understood the situation, but it also felt like, geez, you should have been able to anticipate this, brother. And it didn't sound like he was asking for help and he was just kind of muscling forward at full speed because he thought he had something. And then when you think about the Patreon, it's not like the Patreon was crazy expensive, but still it's a lot of money. If he had 10,000 people, which I think he did, he was making some bank. And so I was empathetic to what happened, but I was also critical. So let me break this down now, start to finish, now that you know why I'm doing this, which is the KriptoKrazed fallout that happened recently. Now I got to step you through it. So I'm collecting these cards and I noticed that he's giving away a lot of the cards. And for me, I thought the art was so I understand supply and demand. I understand that whatever you price a thing at is going to be its going rate. That's how crypto even works. And what you should do is you should price it based on what you think the value of it is. But what was happening was when he spread this and he's making it available to so many people, you're losing the rarity to some degree because he would mint like 10,000 of them. And then people would sell them for like 50 cents or $1. And I actually called out one of the guys, his name's Sisfail. And I'm like, what the are you doing, dude? Why? Why are you selling it so dang low? You can make more off this. This is killer art. He has some of the best art, especially like his Safe Moon card. At the time Safe Moon was jumping, he should be selling it for like 10,000 bucks because this was at the time that Ethereum was hot and heavy, traffic was way up, everything was popular, and it was a key opportunity to make some real good money. But what I think went wrong is that he never set the base price, which he should have, and the community devalued the price. They just saw it as something to make quick bucks off of. Well, the problem is that we didn't ever get that many cards. I only got like 20 some odd cards until I stopped, right? So then even if I were to do it at $1, that's 20 bucks for what? Yes, it's free money. The point is, I know that this artwork, if these idiots weren't in my way, I could have easily sold each one of them for like $1,000, maybe $1,500 because the artwork was that good if there was true rarity and scarcity, and it never was. So when I realized, okay, everybody's just devaluing this and nobody's going to make any money and there's a waste of time, it's just nice, cool art, I stopped claiming the free cards. And I had stopped following the Discord because there was no reason, because nobody was on that same page, because none of these are business minded. They're all idiots who don't understand supply and demand. And they don't understand that these could have easily sold for higher price. So I went back later because I now, of course, have the Crypto Talk Radio Discord channel at cryptotalkradio.net/Discord. And I clicked over onto the other KriptoKrazed, thing to check in. And I see a bunch of people and they're pissed off and they're saying they haven't heard from this guy in like months. Well, that's kind of weird because he was pretty good about communication. He was really following with the community. He was always there. And I dug a little bit deeper. And of course, Discord, it's hard to go back in history, but it seemed like what happened is he just pretty much clicked offline. It was not communicative and the new cards weren't coming out. Well, the Patreon entitled you to new cards because it specifically says you get this many cards and we do it every week. So there were commitments made he was not delivering. And that was weird because, again, he was always on this. He was on top of this when he was a one-man show. So then now he's got a forum, he's got a moderator, he's got a couple of assistant people. How the heck did this fall out? I scroll down and I see later he's responding and he's telling the story that basically at some point he had decided to quit his job to get into this. Well, I know how much money he was making with the Patreon, so I'm not questioning that decision necessarily. However, if he only did it because he was making enough money, I do think it was poorly thought out, because part of the problem when you're not working is you lose focus. You lose your priority of your focus. And based on his conversation, it seemed like that's what happened to him. He just lost his focus when he went all full in this. He also said that he was no longer able to give the time and attention necessary to his wife, and that was creating a strain on their marriage. Well, I can understand that to some degree. And it goes to, and I figured I would use this as kind of these one lesson type episodes, is if you're making these commitments, right? You're going all in, and a lot of crypto projects do this. You're making all these lofty commitments. You're making all these promises because you're trying to get the word out. You're trying to get your name out there, and he was successful in this. At some point, though, you have to think, if you don't have the business mind for what's sustainable. I always talk about sustainability. Sustainability doesn't talk about what you can do up front. Sustainability talks about long-term. What is sustainable? What are you going to be able to continue to manage when you get into it? If you don't plan for success, you're going to fail. Like that's 101 of it all. And while I empathized with his situation, I'm a bit critical because, again, when he launched this, he launched it kind of throwing it all out there, devalued his own product by doing so out of desperation to get a name out. When the truth is, he could have created it off of scarcity, continued to do the same thing, but not just give it away to everybody, then price it based on the upper tiers to where he's getting more value out of it. Those people are going to recoup their money by selling them at the right price that they should have been selling it at. And so now you're not devaluing the product, but then you're also doing less work because you're not constantly churning out product and devaluing your own product. So my point is, I think he created too many cards too fast. I think his velocity was too dang fast. I think his expectations were too lofty. I think that he had a great vision and he still has great art, but I think he got too much into the hype of what crypto was doing. All of his various NFTs were around whatever crypto was popular at the time. When they're no longer popular, they lose value. That's okay as long as they are priced properly at the time. Like it's a timing thing in the moment right now. Like when he did a Satama card and he did it literally right when Satama was at its peak, but because he gave it away to like 10,000 people, he devalued it because these people are just dumbing it down to like $1 or 50 cents because they don't understand supply and demand, as I do, and I'm frustrated seeing them devalue their own product. He had a SHIB card. When SHIB had launched on Coinbase Pro and was peaking at all-time high, he devalued it by giving it to everybody, and then they only price it like at $1, which makes no dang sense. My point is, I don't think it's him specifically, and I know the guy from months, right? I know he wasn't malicious. My point is, my impassioned plea to all in cryptocurrency, NFT or otherwise. It sounds good, and when you have the right idea, there's this criticality that I think a lot of people lack. They don't understand that there's desperate people who just dump your garbage out at low prices and devalue it. That means you kind of have to force the value upon them. That means if you're going to do NFTs, scarcity needs to be considered. If you're going to create the Patreon approach, which I don't agree with, but if you're going to do it, then you should only offer these to the ones that are paying the highest tiers on a regular basis. Everybody else that's not willing to pay Patreon, you can offer them some lesser art, but in his case, he offered the same artwork regardless of whether you're Patreon or not. It just depended on how many of them you got. So like there were people that are getting like 20 of these, and then they're dumping them on the market for like $1 or $2 or $3. I'm looking at the price chart right now. This SHIB one, and SHIB arguably are the ones that are out there, is probably the most popular, are going for like $1.86. So that's a joke to me. I'm sorry, because the artwork is actually very good. Now, here's the problem, I think, with NFTs in general is that they don't really do anything. He doesn't have any utility tied to it. It's just really nice art. And that's why I said that timing was critical. At the time, these were ultra popular. Scarcity should come into play, and there should have been smarter decisions about your rollout to make sure that we're not devaluing what you create. Because once you devalue it, it's going to be hard for you to recoup. The other mistake I think he made, at some point, he leaped over to this crypto pops or cyber pops or whatever this garbage was. It was absolutely terrible. And I'm not criticizing his art. I'm saying that it was even lesser than the other ones because it didn't do anything other than try to hook into, again, React. I see these ones are doing these kind of robot looking garbage things, so I have to do that too. No, stick to what you're doing and make what you're doing more valuable to the people that are following you, because he had a strong community, very strong community that he could have leveraged to do great things and really change the game. He was able to get verified on freaking OpenSea. So at that point, he already had sky's the limit. He could have created really killer NFTs, just stepped up the game, but he could minimize how much work he had to do to make it happen. And it feels like he went the wrong direction. It feels like he just kept the same velocity, even though his popularity was spiking. Then we're dumping all these low value NFTs on the market, devaluing the business, devaluing his. Nobody wins because the people who are holding it, they're not worth anything. You can't sell them for anything. He can't actively make significant profit because of what happened when he burnt out. And then the Patreon people are dumping the Patreon because they're not getting the product. And Patreon might kick you off the platform if you're not giving people what they promised. So my summary thoughts, I'm very disappointed with the KriptoKrazed situation because as somebody who's been there with his stuff since pretty much the day he launched his NFTs and watched and just saw he was sitting on gold and he devalued his own product. And that's unfortunate because I know there were people, I was there, that tried to help him and he turned down the help because he felt he could do it alone. And then when the Discord came up, he had some help, but just help doing the same thing that was devaluing the product. So I don't know if KriptoKrazed is going to listen to this. I doubt it. But if he does, KriptoKrazed, if you want that smoke, I would really love to chat with you because I know what you went through. I know it's hard for you, but I also want to help. I need you to help me understand why you were allowing people to devalue your product, because I think that was the big thing. It wasn't the time. The time played a factor, but you got to understand the time you invested is based on the devaluing of the product. If you make an elite level product, you don't need to make it constantly. But instead, you made a low value commodity product, which forced you to keep making it on an excessive basis to keep up with demand. I don't know why that made any sense. And I'd like to understand why was that the course of action? And if your response would have simply been, well, we live and learn, I understand, but there had to have been signs when you launched the Patreon that you could have leveraged the Patreon to strengthen your brand. I do think you can recover the brand now if you're willing to make some changes and still make your wife happy and still keep your sanity and still get back to the energy you once had. Because I also suspect that just you're burnt out on just doing because you're doing the same thing. That means you got to change the game. If you're willing to listen, I got some ideas. If you want the smoke, hit me up at cryptotalkradio.net and the contact, and let's chat and see if we can get back. If you're in KriptoKrazed NFTs, I still think they're some of the best art. I'm talking just artwork. They don't do anything. I think they're some of the best art. They're devalued. And they're devalued because they were launched devalued. They were not launched with value. They were launched with lesser value on purpose for saturation, which I think was a bad idea. Because when the bear period hit, the popularity of the sources of the NFTs started to decline, which further devalued these. And so will they recoup? I have no idea. Some of these don't even exist anymore. But I do think that there's still something that can be done going forward. However, KriptoKrazed would have to rethink his strategy and get back to square one, basic fundamentals on how he approached the business side of what he's doing. I think he can do it because he's a very talented individual. It's the question of whether he's willing to do that. And I'm willing to help if he wants that smoke.